Hello, hello, my friends. Another dedicated candle review for you today. We are going to be talking about Caramel Sundays Cranberry Coconut Cream. Now, before we get into this review, I did want to let you guys know that my format or my approach here to reviewing a lot of Caramel Sundays candles is a little bit different than some of the other brands that I review, in that unfortunately, this candle is not currently available, and I honestly don't know if it will be making a return next summer. Those of you guys who are familiar with Caramel Sundays know that they operate from a business model where they do a monthly restock. They have a lineup of fragrances that they are going to offer, and then it's kind of like you get what you get, you know? And so unlike, say, Kringle or Homeworks or Bath & Body Works or Goose Creek, brands where you can just kind of go to their website and shop at your leisure, that is not Caramel Sunday's business model. Now, they are a very small business. They have to do what works for them. And so for them, what works is kind of this like rapid fire monthly restock type of model. So with all of that being said, unfortunately, I want to say unfortunately, and I don't know which way we want to look at it here, but unfortunately, at the time that I am filming this video, this candle is not currently available, nor do I see it becoming available until probably another 9 or 10 months, down the road, if they happen to bring it back. However, as I am reviewing these fragrances, you guys know Caramel Sundays is a fairly new to me brand. It's the newest candle brand on my radar. I've been shopping from the brand since like November of 2024. So as I am going through and burning through their candles, I am trying to make sure that I am documenting my thoughts on each fragrance, even if it's not currently available, just in case they happen to bring it back for, the next season, like next year. If they bring this fragrance back and people are curious about it, then I do have some documented thoughts, because sometimes people come to me and they say, oh, have you had this fragrance before? And if I didn't review it on my channel, you guys know I review so many candles that sometimes it's hard for me to remember exactly unless a candle performed terribly for me or like it totally like excelled and stood out of my mind. Most candles, I would say 90% of candles, fall in that middle ground where I enjoy them, but my thoughts just start to get jumbled after a while if you're going to ask me for specific performance. So I just figure it's best for me to record my review, give you my thoughts in real time, and then down the road, if people want to watch this review, in real time, or they want to go back and see it again a year or two later, then it is there. So now that we've gotten that little spiel out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about this Cranberry Coconut Cream. This is in one of Caramel Sunday's standard 2-wick vessels. The jar says 22 ounces, but once the wax settles, this is about 18 ounces of 100% soy wax. Caramel Sundays is a non-toxic candle brand. The fragrances they use do not contain VOCs, phthalates, parabens, all of the scary stuff that a lot of us are concerned about these days. They do also offer a lot of candles in a 4-wick format, and every once in a while they will release a big size, like big old Mama Jamma 150 ounce vessel. But for today, we're going to go ahead and talk about this 2-wick format. Fragrance notes on this candle are listed as top notes of mango, sweet cranberry, mid notes of coconut milk, peach, base notes of sugar, orange, and Tahitian vanilla. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about this one, because I purchased this candle in the May 2025 restock, and I will tell you that this was kind of like a game time decision type of candle for me. Normally I have always pretty much, I have my restock wish list ready to go by the time the Caramel Sundays launch goes live. But usually on the day of the drop, I usually add like one more fragrance that was kind of like teetering on my radar. But I go through and I look at the fragrance notes again, and I'm like, you know what, that one does actually intrigue me. And so when I did the May restock, this is the candle that qualified, for that little, that whatever that would be, whatever I'm going to call that, the last minute addition, we shall say. So my nose really likes this fragrance, you guys. I do detect cranberry in here for sure. The cranberry note in here, though, is very nice, because oftentimes I think of cranberry as like a fall or winter type of note. I think a lot of us tend to affiliate that fragrance note with those seasons. However, I will say This is done really nicely. Now, for me personally, I feel like this is like a late summer type of fragrance. The addition of the coconut note in there, that coconut milk, lends a little bit of creaminess to this. It has some other notes of Tahitian vanilla, sugar, orange, peach. It's definitely a sweet cranberry fragrance. It's not overly tart and not overly, like I said, autumnal or fall-like. It's definitely more of like a sweet cranberry note. I personally really like the way that Caramel Sundays does cranberry fragrances. I have made it no secret. The way that they do cranberry, the way that they do pistachio, definitely probably my favorite of all of the brands that I frequently purchase from. But this is just very nicely done. There is a little hint of some tropical notes in there. Like I said, mango, there's some peach, there's some orange. And you guys know, I have always said that mango and peach typically can come across a little bit cat urine-like, but that's not what I get here. The one thing that I will say about this fragrance is that it almost comes off a little bit, it's kind of mellowed out, I would say, now that I'm at like, once I hit about like this point of the burn, I will say that this note that I picked up on mellowed out, and now this is definitely more of just like a cranberry and like a good like creamy background to it. But prior to that, I was actually picking up on something that smelled almost like astringent, almost like a tree note, almost like a Christmas tree type of note, which was a little bit unique. I was like, oh, but that note did dissipate. Like I said, once I got to about this part of the burn, I feel like the fragrance notes kind of settled, and that astringent note kind of went away and settled definitely more into like a very sweetened cranberry type of note with the coconut milk. Very, very pleasant surprise. I do enjoy this fragrance. And truthfully, I think that this fragrance came around right at the right time for me, because I know that we are just entering early July here. But truthfully, you guys, I live in a downright hot climate right now. I'm in Arizona, but our weather here in Arizona, we have been dealing with very nice temperatures. Really, we have very mild winters. So like our temperatures have been like in the 70s since February, starting in February, and then they gradually get a little bit warmer. So I personally have been burning a lot of very like warm weather type of fragrances for a lot of months now. And I am definitely starting to feel a little bit burned out on all of the fruity tropicals and whatnot. So this fragrance, I feel like, has come at the perfect time for me to burn, because like I said, I'm feeling kind of ready to gravitate away from all of the fruity tropicals. But I'm not yet quite ready to dive all the way into, say, pumpkin and apple and all of that kind of stuff. So maybe in another month I'll be ready for that, but not right now. I'm not quite ready for that. So overall, I do think that this fragrance is a great fragrance, and it's great for this time of year. Let's go ahead and talk about the performance of this candle. So I'm going to go ahead and lift this up. You can see wicks are doing pretty well here. These are, it's a very clean burning wax formula. I never really have issues with the wax getting sooty. I did have some issues with their 3-wick formula when they had that in their rotation. They did pull those candles. They just said, yeah, we're noticing some issues with those, so we're just going to stick to what we do best. So these ones do burn very cleanly. I do notice that I get a little bit of soot once the vessel gets a little bit lower, especially if I let these candles burn for a little bit longer. Sometimes I get distracted and I do need to trim those wicks. I have typically said with Caramel Sundays candles, especially in this 2-wick format, usually at about the 3-hour burn point, which that's where I'm at right now, you want to go ahead and dip those wicks, go ahead and just trim them, and then you can relight if you still want to continue the fragrance. Strength and throw on this candle, I'm going to say it's in the medium range, I would say. Without a hurricane on it, I'm going to give it about a 5. It's not a super strong fragrance. If I put it in my master bedroom, which has lower ceilings and is obviously a smaller room than, say, my open concept living room, I can smell it a little bit better in there. But my best solution has been putting this in a hurricane. When I put it in a hurricane out in my open concept, I can smell it. The hurricane, I would say, bumps it up about 2 notches. I would give it about a 7 with a hurricane on it in my open concept living room. So the performance does improve that way. Very happy with it there. I would hope that they would bring this one back in like a 4-wick. Personally, you guys, I will say that the 4-wicks perform the best in my open concept. There have been some of their 2-wicks. Some of their 2-wicks have been pretty strong for me too. I still maintain that the strongest 2-wick I've had, or really honestly the strongest candle in general that I've had from Caramel Sundays, was their truffle butter cookie from last winter. That was like a 10, and it lingered for a long time, and that was just a 2-wick. So sometimes I would say that it's not always necessarily the amount of wicks with Caramel Sundays that will determine the strength and throw. I do genuinely think that it tends to be what the base is of the fragrance notes. I do notice that fragrances that have a vanilla base tend to be a little bit lighter. The only one that's kind of bucked that trend for me has been their Bakery on Main candle. That one I have found that the 4-wick performance has been stellar for me. But yeah, there's been other fragrances in their 4-wicks that I felt like if I would have had it in a 2-wick, it probably would have been maybe weaker. So I would just say that if you're familiar with Caramel Sundays, if you like 100% soy wax formulas, if you know that the fragrance notes are up your alley, or it's a fragrance that you genuinely think that you are going to enjoy, my personal opinion would be to splurge for the 4-wicks. Again, if you have a bigger open space, but if you have a smaller space, popping a lot of these 2-wicks in a hurricane does seem to suffice for me. They do perform well in the closed concept, whether or not they're in a hurricane. But I do find that Caramel Sundays candles do seem to respond well in terms of bumping up the oomph factor if you put them in a hurricane. So overall, you guys, this candle does get 2 thumbs up for me. Do I see myself repurchasing it next year? Probably not. I do enjoy it, but it's not one that I feel like I need more of. Now, that's just me as a reviewer. I'm always having to focus on new things, so I kind of save my repurchases for candles that I just absolutely fall in love with. And while I like this one and I enjoy it, like I said earlier in the video, this kind of falls into what I would say are 90% of candles that I bring in, that make it into my stash at some point. I like them. But sometimes I don't really feel the need to repurchase them, and that is how I feel about this candle here. So anyways, you guys, let me know in the comment box down below if you were able to get your hands on this one this summer, what you think of it. Would you want it to come back in 2026? I would be curious to know. Again, please hit thumbs up if you found this review helpful. Consider subscribing to my channel if you are new, and I do want to say thank you so very much for spending your time here with me today. Until my next one, I hope you all go out and have a very blessed day. Bye.